All right, ladies and gentlemen, some update information, some stuff that you won't find exactly in the mainstream media because they're not covering all the details that was discussed with regards to Homeland Security Roundtable on the coronavirus. Looks like a Senate hearing. I'll try to leave a link to this individual's website. She actually has the entire hearing. It's an hour and 53 minutes. I only got 39 minutes of it listened to. And the overview is the CDC director, they do expect secondary spreads to happen. Two additional individuals have been tested positive for corona, and the roundtable, the Senate hearing, they do expect that we will have something of issue here. Now, I'll go ahead and give you the minute and second counter so you can go ahead and check this video out yourself if you'd like to hear the snippets. And like I said, I'll try to make a video with some of the snippets that I'm going to discuss here, and only the ones that I discuss here. So the highlights at 8:45, that's 8 minutes and 45 of this video here, which I'll post the link to. At 8:45, it looks like an individual that was in charge of generating pharmaceuticals for the United States, they have the raw ingredients, the raw pharma ingredients made in Wuhan. And that's the generic anti-infectives. Now, I didn't look up what that definition is, and maybe I'll do that, or if you'd like to do that, in time, I'm sure that's pretty serious. Generic anti-infectives sounds serious. It sounds like the core ingredients are made in Wuhan, and that production has ceased. They talked about possibly making it in India, and maybe even considering trying to move some of the production here in the United States. And as you can guess, the Senate scrutinized the companies and asked why, in fact, are they still doing that since this hasn't been the first outbreak. Of course, we had to deal with SARS and some other stuff over there. So that was covered in manufacturing earlier in the discussion. Again, I'll only be covering 40 minutes of this, and then I'll make another video, and perhaps I'll cover the rest later. Another discussion that was had at 1910, it discussed that this will have an impact locally, and it's going to have a huge impact to health facilities because the amount of critically ill is going to be huge. 1% is very big, and that's the deaths. That's the mortality rate. That's I should say, the fatality rate from this illness. But the impact locally on the health facilities is going to be huge, and that's a completely different number. And if you watch some of this young lady's videos, she actually talks about if there was 50 car wrecks in one city and all of them are fatal or are critical, I should say, that would absolutely overwhelm a system's health facilities. So I'll go ahead and move on. At 22:30, they started to talk about supplies. And quite frankly, we just don't have the supplies secured. We don't have it secured, and we don't have the supply chain. At 24:47, preparedness was talked about again, and the discussion about who exactly in Homeland Security is really in charge of this thing. At this point, it sounds like they're really not sure. Now, this was a blue ribbon discussion from a defense initiative group, and again, I'll let you review that at 24:47 of this video. And they talked about biodefense and whose responsibility is it for this to be managed. And it seems like things started shifting gears around Ebola and around SARS, and a lot of discussion about bioweapons and how this should be categorized as a bioweapon. And as a result, a lot of gears have been shifted in kind of the defense area on who's going to be in charge of this then. So not exactly Department of Health kind of thing. It looks like that's the way things are heading towards, but nothing was finalized. That was the discussion. You know, it's just kind of up in the air, and it looks like we're in the very beginning of this for our own country, and it looks like they're going to be watching internationally to see how things go and to see how things play out to help us better organize as things start to unfold here. So they did recognize this as COVID-19. A lot of them were still calling it coronavirus, and I see a lot of videos and people that can talk very intellectually about this. They're going to call it the Wuhan virus, and I'm going to call it that too. My sympathetics are with the people that are ill, but to a government that has brutally suppressed their people, donated their organs, and really tried to, and still are trying to, push their culture on others while insisting others are a little bit pushy with theirs. Later, I'm going to try to post some videos on how China is trying to take over maps. If you look at your map, or most maps are actually made in China, and they will claim territory over Taiwan. They'll claim some territory rights over India, and they're really trying to rewrite maps. And I'll try to put a link to that. There's a great channel called China Uncensored that reviews a lot of this stuff with the interesting things that China does to spread its civilization of ideals, its culture, and its definitely state-sponsored propaganda and agenda. So there was again a discussion about this coronavirus, and it was always discussed and continuously discussed as a plague, pretty much something on par with the Spanish flu. I don't think anybody was kidding themselves, and they definitely were trying to get information out there. The whole point of the Senate, I think, was just to try to get as much information as they could and to try to look at it and hope that our democracy and our openness with information helps to really do a lot better job than what has been done in China. So at 32:45 to 33 minutes, a speaker, a medical doctor spoke. I'll let you check that out with her name. I don't want to dice it up. And she merely said that this is the tip of the iceberg. And we don't really know what we're getting into as far as the spread, where it starts, where it ends. But the discussion did shift and reveal some more information about that it may not just be 14 days incubation, it may be up to 24 with the 1 day, 1 to 2 days being the start, which the incubation time is probably critical for their spread, but they're not sure. They're not sure if it can be spread during the incubation only or before the incubation. This thing is really kind of there's a lot of unknowns there. And the doctor was real hesitant to answer some of those, but they were honest in saying at 35:15 that this is in fact worse than the flu. There should be no downplaying this, and it's not my opinion. This is a doctor that was reviewed and talked to by the Senate. It is on record, and this will be worse than the flu. So if the death to the flu, with the flu season being 10,000 currently in the United States, and this has at the minimum 1% chance of fatalities, the estimates could be up to a million. When that'll be, over what period of time, I could not say, and I would not say. But they did discuss briefly where I have left off between 36:15 and 39 that SARS never had a vaccine. And Pharma never had a chance to get a vaccine because the funding started to dwindle. But I did see another video about where they were with SARS. And the interesting thing about that is that SARS, the vaccines that they had, that they ran into problems with, literally, if it wasn't the same serotype, which was like the SARS that they were studying, I guess what they're suggesting had happened is when the vaccine was given to a mouse and the vaccine was only specific for the certain SARS virus that they were trying to subject it to, and another serotype was exposed to that same vaccine, instead of the vaccine actually, I think, creating protection or resistance, it actually assisted. essentially bind to the vaccine or the antigen that was created from the vaccine and actually assist in facilitating um, illness. And there's a lot of interesting things with that because in some ways this almost exhibits um, symptoms that are similar to the dengue vaccine, and in a lot of ways it almost exhibits the natures and behaviors of the HIV virus in the way it manipulates the cells that it infects. So I really couldn't define in my own mind with some of the education I have on the differences. There's a thing that's called some sort of immune response syndrome, but it's cytokinesis something or other. Essentially, it causes a very wild reaction with your immune system, and it can cause an overreaction, hypersensitivity. So, as far as with the SARS virus and the SARS vaccine being the beginning point for development for this, it's not exactly a good point to start off with because they never had really good outcomes with what they had. So that's all I have for you now. That is what I went over. And if there's anything else that I find interesting, I'll definitely share it with you. And I will try to get some snippets of this video out there. That way you can see for yourself. Thanks for watching.